for 5
Thank
minutes.
you, Chairman. Thank you, Governor, for being here. I want to, reiterate and support, I think, what you've seen on a bipartisan basis, which is food security is national security. I'm a former CIA officer. There are 2 of us on this committee, that's my entire sort of lens with which I look through this. We should always be able to feed ourselves by ourselves. And you're right, during COVID, my family's in the hot dog business. And during COVID, we were concerned with the meat processing plants going down with COVID that, Americans don't know what it's like to walk into a store and see no protein on the shelves, and the panic that would create and the concern that would create. I also live on my family farm. I guess just to pick up on a thread that Representative Gallagher mentioned, this idea of having farmland purchases go through what's called the CFIUS process, and I think again, I see it as a federal issue because, based on your example, right, where the intelligence community, the full weight of our sort of insider information that we may have on a company, on individuals, on their intentions, does reside within the federal government. I respect your attempt to do one at the state level, but just like you were about to meet with a bunch of businessmen and the State Department came in and said, we've got real issues with them, that resides at the federal government level. So there's a bunch of bipartisan bills on putting all purchases of farmland, not just farmland adjacent to a military base, adjacent to a sensitive site, but all farmland to go through that CFIUS process and let our intelligence community tell us whether this is a risk or not. Last week, myself and Congressman Blake Moore from Utah, Republican, went a step further, and I'd ask you to think about this. And we said, it's not just farmland. If you have a company coming in building a big manufacturing site, I'm from Michigan, right? If you have a company coming in to do a huge purchase of our infrastructure, like hog slaughter, right? You should be putting that through that same intelligence community process to help us understand if that's a strategic threat to us. And I think we all are trying to solve the same problem, which is how do we make sure that nations that could be real adversaries potentially down the road are not able to purchase major infrastructure and assets in the United States. But we have to make distinction. We can't hit it with a giant, club. Biggest purchasers of farmland in Michigan are Canada and Holland. I'm not real stressed about the Canadians who are my neighbors. I used to go there to drink when drinking age was 19. I'm not real stressed about the Canadians buying land in the state of Michigan. It has to be limited, tailored. But I do think it's an area of bipartisan cooperation. We have to do that without demonizing people from China who are living under this government that I bet they really, really don't like. We want the best and brightest from China to want to be students here and stay here and build their lives here, as opposed to take information back to China. So that's my one ask is let's have a real policy conversation. Let's do it on a bipartisan basis. We have the will here, but let's also in the process not demonize all human beings with a giant brush in a way, again, as you mentioned, where leaders set the tone. So that's that, but I agree with you on many, many things on this. Would ask you to think about taking it one step further from just farmland to the big infrastructure that we know that they're interested in purchasing here with connections to the Chinese Communist Party.
Well, and that would be something that obviously we've had a lot of conversations about in South Dakota, because I am alarmed at that. Because the next question is, well, what about commercial property? What about, I mean, it's not that they haven't been conducting nefarious activities from smaller tracts of land, and where does this stop? We should all be analyzing it. That's why I proposed a CFIUS model at the state level, is because I get the privilege and I get the opportunity to be solely focused on South Dakota. So I know what's going on there better than I think someone does that doesn't live in South Dakota and lives all the way across the country. And it's no offense to the federal government, but it is very rare that you guys fix anything. And a lot of times when we're doing something, I'm doing it in South Dakota or another governor's doing it, and you're taking that as a model then and using it. And frankly, the Constitution of the United States gives us states' rights and a lot more opportunities to lead than what it grants to the federal government. So by giving us the opportunity for me to fight for my people and to bring policies forward, it gives other states the chance to do that, and the federal government follows in place. I would use TikTok as an example. By us leading, by banning TikTok on government devices, dozens of states followed our lead. Then the federal government came in and recognized the threat that TikTok was and how it was collecting data and spying on us and being used to study the American people and figure out how to continue to steal our information. So, I would think let the states be incubators of using what our Constitution intended us to be on possible models like this, that then the federal government as well can proliferate and move forward and do things right. I'm much more nimble than the federal government is.
Thank the gentlelady, and I thank the governor.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for
Honor and a privilege.
taking the time.